Giannis Antetokounmpo is a freight train who scores 62% of his shots, almost all of them at the rim. Bam Adebayo lives in the paint too, and to get Giannis, Miami just traded away Tyler Hero, their best shooter. So here's the uncomfortable question nobody wants to ask. Can Giannis actually win with no shooting around him? Let's run the numbers. Here's the plan. First, the spacing problem. Who actually shoots on this team now? Then Giannis' own shot profile and why it makes spacing so critical. Then the Bam overlap, the Hero loss, and finally, whether this can still work. This is the skeptical deep dive, the case the highlight reels skip. The trade and the stats are verified. The analysis is mine. Let's start with the problem. This is game is culture. Quick thing first, if you like the analytical side of trades, not just the hype, subscribe. It's free and it helps a ton. Now, the spacing problem. The spacing problem. Modern offense is built on spacing. You need shooters stationed around the arc to drag defenders out of the paint, which opens driving lanes for your stars. Miami's new core does the opposite. Giannis doesn't shoot threes, Bam doesn't shoot threes, and the Heat just shipped out Tyler Hero, the all-star who took and made the most threes on the roster. They added a superstar and subtracted their spacing in one move. Look at Giannis' shot diet, and the issue jumps out. The overwhelming majority of his attempts come at the rim or in the paint, with essentially nothing from three. That's why he shoots 62%. He only takes great shots. But it also means he provides zero floor spacing himself. When he doesn't have the ball, his defender can sag all the way into the lane. Here's that shot profile on the floor, a dense cluster of makes at and around the rim, and almost nothing beyond it. This map is the most efficient in basketball, and also the least spaced. A defense doesn't have to respect Giannis 1 foot outside the paint. Now picture Bam's man also sitting in the lane. That's two help defenders clogging the exact area Giannis needs to operate. And this is why spacing matters so much, specifically for Giannis. His entire game is downhill, a runway from the perimeter to the rim. If the paint is packed with bodies, that runway disappears. Defenses have spent years building a wall against him, daring him to shoot from outside. The one antidote is shooters on the floor, who force those wall builders to stay home. Miami just traded that antidote away. The Bam overlap. Now the fit with Bam, and it cuts both ways. Bam is a brilliant passer and defender, which helps. But he's also a non-shooter who does his best work in the same mid-range and paint areas Giannis wants. 2 stars, 1 crowded zone, and no reliable floor spacing between them. They can make it work with smart actions, but they overlap in exactly the place a defense most wants to load up. And don't underrate what leaving with Hero costs. Tyler Hero was an all-star and the engine of Miami's outside shooting, a player who bent defenses just by standing in the corner. Trading him for Giannis is a clear talent upgrade, but it removes the exact skill, high-volume shooting, that the new stars most need around them. They didn't just lose a scorer, they lost their spacing. Plot talent against spacing and you see the gamble. Miami's new core is sky high on talent, 2 top-tier two-way players, but it sits near the bottom on floor spacing. Most modern champions live in the high talent, high spacing corner. The Heat are betting they can win from a corner almost no recent champion has. Elite talent with poor spacing. It's a bold, contrarian bet. Quick halftime note, if you want the honest version of every trade, stick around, and subscribe while you're here, it's free. Now, can it still work? Now the optimistic case, because it's real too. Giannis is such a gravity well at the rim that he creates his own kick-out spacing. Defenses collapse and open shooters appear, if you have them. Add an elite defense, transition points off Bam's rebounds, and Riley's history of finding shooters on the cheap, and the formula can work. The talent is high enough to paper over a lot, but it leans entirely on adding the right role players. So how big is the spacing risk? My read, it's real, and it's the single biggest threat to this team, but it's fixable. With 1 or 2 knockdown shooters added around the 2 stars, the offense becomes scary. Without them, it could bog down into a half-court slog every time the playoffs tighten up. Call it a moderate to high risk, the kind that decides whether Miami is a contender or a champion. And the fix is clear. Miami's entire offseason now has one priority above all others: shooting. Every roster spot, every minimum signing, every buyout target should be a player who can space the floor and knock down an open three off Giannis's drives. Surround these two bigs with three snipers and the spacing problem shrinks fast. Fail two and the most talented Heat team in years could underwhelm. The blueprint is simple to say and hard to pull off. Find three shooters who defend just enough to stay on the court, surround the two bigs with them, and a clunky offense turns genuinely frightening. Miss on that, and this team bogs down exactly when the games matter most. History backs up the worry. The modern champions have almost all been elite shooting teams, or at least good enough from deep to keep defenses honest. Bully ball teams with no spacing have repeatedly hit a wall in the playoffs when defenses tighten and load the paint. Giannis has felt this himself. His Bucks teams that bowed out early were often the ones a great defense could simply wall off. Spacing isn't a luxury in May, it's the price of entry. But there's a lineup lever Miami can pull. They don't have to play Giannis and Bam together every single minute. Staggering them so each anchors a unit surrounded by four shooters eases the overlap and keeps the floor open for whoever's in. It won't fix the starting five spacing, but smart staggered minutes can hide the worst of it and keep the offense breathing through a game. Good coaching can soften a roster flaw. Where could I be wrong? If Bam quietly extends his range to the three, which he's flirted with, the whole math changes and the floor opens up overnight. And Giannis's rim gravity alone generates more spacing than a static analysis suggests. But two non-shooting stars with their best shooter gone is a genuine historic concern. The talent says contender. The spacing says prove it. This is the single biggest swing factor on the entire team, and the next few months of roster building will tell us which way it breaks. So that's the real question hanging over this trade. Giannis and Bam are a monster on paper, but with no shooting around them, can they win when it matters? Do you trust Miami to solve the spacing, or is this a fatal flaw? Tell me below. And next video, did Giannis even pick the right team? And we are so close to 1,000 subs, so subscribe to stay up to date.